Hello and welcome to my shop. In this video I am going to be installing a rival forged aluminum transfer case skid plate on my 2024 Ford Ranger. My 6th gen Ford Ranger is just an XLT, it's not a Raptor, and it does not have the FX4 package, so I have had no skid plates under this. I already have the engine and transmission skid plate installed on this. Check my YouTube channel for those other videos, but I'm going to go ahead, get the truck in the air, and we'll go over the install. Should be pretty simple. Included with the skid is a new cross member as well as the skid. There's also an instruction packet and a hardware packet. There is a lot of hardware with this kit because Arrival's trying to make sure that you have everything you need regardless of whether you already have their skids installed on the vehicle or not. And if you've watched my transmission skid plate install, there's a lot of variation and a lot of variability on these 6th gen Rangers. First part of this install, I'm going to go ahead and install the supplied new cross member. You're going to want to go ahead, remove it. They have it kind of snugged up on here for shipping purposes, but you don't need all that extra weight while you're trying to move this around. One important thing to note, it is not symmetric. There is a kind of lengthwise slot on one and a widthwise slot on the other end. The lengthwise is on the passenger side, or sorry, driver's side. The width one is on the passenger side. On the passenger side, at least of my XLT, there is an existing threaded hole in the frame that we will be using. This is an M12. It's basically right under this exhaust hanger. On some vehicles, this may not be threaded. If it isn't, you will need to use one of their little flag nuts and insert it through the frame and pull down through the hole. So in my case, I already have an M12 in that location. On the driver's side of the truck, there most likely is not any threaded fasteners. Front of the truck is to my right, back of the truck is to the left. There are two holes with two big square pockets in it. We're going to be using the rear hole here, and I'm going to be installing one of the flag nuts that they provided. Just one quick word of note, it looks like they flow drilled or did something to form the threads in here. Double check that your hardware threads into this before you install it. I ended up chasing this one out with a tap just to make sure. But I'm going to go ahead and feed this up. In here. And I'm going to get both of the pieces of the flag to come down through the hole. And once you've done that, you basically will pull these tabs back and down, and that'll hold it in place until we can get the hardware installed. Now that I have the flag nut installed on the driver's side, I'm going to go ahead and install the cross member. Again, long slot, driver's side. It is not called for, but I am putting a little bit of blue Loctite on this hardware just to make sure that it'll help with corrosion, and it'll also just help in the long term, making sure it doesn't vibrate loose. I am just going to be snugging this hardware up. I'm not going to be tightening anything at this point in time. Now that I have the cross member snugged up, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to install the skid plate itself. I already have the Arrival transmission skid plate on this truck, so first thing I'm going to have to do is loosen these two pieces of hardware on these extension brackets. I will note there is a lot of variability on these trucks. I had to use these black extension brackets when I did the transmission install or transmission skid install. Arrival says that is primarily for the Raptor, but I have an XLT and had to do it. I'm not going to go over installation of these brackets in this video. If you want to see how I installed these and why I installed these, check out my video on that. I'll have that linked at the end of the video as well as in the description. So all I got to do right now is loosen these two bolts. You don't have to remove it because this is slotted, so I'm going to loosen these and then we'll get the actual skid plate installed. I've got the transmission, skid, and bolts loose, so now I'm going to go ahead and get the skid plate installed. Ford Rival goes towards the front of the vehicle. On all the other skid plates, the new skid plate would go under. In this case, it does go over, so I'm going to have to push up and slide the skid plate on. I'm now going to take some of the other supply hardware. Shit, that doesn't line up. I did run into a problem as I tried to install the skid plate onto the cross member. I did not have enough adjustment in the slots and holes to move the cross member around as I needed to. The front bolts, which are attached to those black plates that I pointed to earlier, they weren't in a location that allowed me to get these two slots to line up. I have ended up loosening those brackets as well as loosening the transmission skid so I can actually shift the whole thing until I could get the bolt holes to line up in the cross member and the skid plate. I'm going to go ahead and get these bolts in, or at least started, and then I'm going to go ahead and start snugging all of these bolts up, and then we'll come back and talk about torquing all the bolts. At this point, I have all the hardware on all the skid plates snugged up now that I had to move all the brackets and everything. Rival calls for all the M10 hardware to be 35 foot-pounds, which is 47 newton meters, and they call for all the M12 hardware to be about 57 foot-pounds, which is 77 newton meters. Just as a point of note, Ford only calls for 35 newton meters, which is only 26 foot-pounds on all their M10 hardware, but I'm going to go ahead and, in this case, follow Rival's recommendations. So I'm going to go ahead and torque everything, and then we'll wrap up the video. So that's the install, or I guess a brief install of the Rival transfer case skid plate. That was the most difficult of the skid plates to install just because of all of the bracketry and everything having to line up. I ended up having to loosen basically all the other skid plates to get that one in place. If you have like an FX4 or a Raptor and are dealing with the factory skid plates, it's probably going to be a lot of work to try and figure out what brackets you do and don't need, whether you need those black extension brackets that I used on my transmission skid, which I also used on this skid, or whether you need more flag nuts or not. Again, not terribly difficult, just a little bit time consuming. Would definitely be a little bit more difficult on your back in like a gravel driveway, but overall not too bad. Very happy with the skid plates from Rival so far. I mean, everything has fit up with minimal effort. They're nice and light. They should be durable. Should be great for overlanding, which is what I'm primarily going to be using this for. Again, I've already done the transmission and engine skid plates. Those videos will be linked in the description. I will be doing the fuel tank skid when I get it, hopefully in another month or so. So stay tuned for that video. Please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And thanks for watching.